At the end of the small hours, male thirst and persistent desire, I am cut off in a fresh oasis of eternity. Such meek nothingness is like a splinter under my mail. This horizon is too sure, and nervous as a jailer. Your last triumph, tenacious crow of treason. These are mine, these few gangrenous thousands who rattle in this calabash of an island. And this, too, is mine. This archipelago arched with anxiety as though to deny itself, as though she were a mother anxious to protect the tenuous delicacy with which her two Americas are joined. This archipelago whose flanks secrete for Europe the sweet liquid of the Gulf Stream. This archipelago which is one side of the shining passage through which the equator walks its tightrope to Africa. My island, my non-enclosure, whose bright courage stands at the back of my Polynesia. In front, Guadeloupe split in two by its dorsal ridge and as wretched as we ourselves. Haiti, where negritude rose to its feet for the first time and said believe in its own humanity. And the comic little tale of Florida, where they are just finishing strangling a Negro. And Africa gigantically caterpillaring as far as the Spanish foot of Europe. The nakedness of Africa, where the scythe of death swings wide. My name is Bordeaux and Nantes and Liverpool and New York and San Francisco, not a corner of this world, but carries my thumbprint and my heel mark on the backs of skyscrapers and my dirt. In the glitter of jewels, who can boast of more than I? Virginia, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, monstrous putrefactions of revolts coming to nothing, putrid marshes of blood trumpets ridiculously blocked red earth, blood brother earth. Mine too a small cell in the Jura. The snow strengthens a small cell with white bars of snow, is a white jailer who stands guard in front of prison. This man is mine, a man alone, imprisoned by whiteness, a man alone defying the white cries of a white death. Toussaint Louverture, a man who fascinates the white sparrowhawk of white death, a man alone in the sterile sea of white sand. An old nigger standing upright against the waters of the sky death describes a shining circle above this man death, is a gentle star above his head death, driven mad, blowing in a ripe cane plantation of his arms death, galloping to prison like a white horse death, gleaming like a cat's eyes in the dark death, hiccuping like water underneath the reef's death, is a wounded bird death, wanes death, vacillates death, is a shadowy pasture death, expires in a white pool of silence. At the four corners of these small hours, swellings of the night convulsions, of rigid death, stubborn fate, upright cries of the mute earth, will not the splendor of this blood explode? At the end of the small hours, these countries whose past is uninscribed on any stone, these roads without memory, these winds without a log. Does that matter? We shall speak. We shall sing. We shall shout. Full voice, great voice, you shall be our good and our guide. Words? Ah, yes, words. Reason, I appoint you wind of the evening. Mouth of authority, be the whip's corolla. Beauty, I name you petition of stone. But my hoarse contraband laughter, my salt petri treasure. Because we hate you, you and your reason. We claim kinship with dementia precox, with flaming madness, with tenacious cannibalism. Treasure? Let us count the madness that remembers the madness, that screams the madness, that sees the madness, that unchains itself. And you know the rest. That 2 and 2 make 5, that the forest mews like a cat, that the tree pulls chestnuts out of fire, that the sky smooths its beard, etc., etc. Who are we and what? Admirable question. By looking at trees, I become a tree, and this long tree's feet have dug great hollows of poison in the earth, have dug huge cities of bones. By thinking of the Congo, I become a Congo noisy with forests and rivers, where the whip cracks like a great band of the prophet, where the water goes la Kuala, where the lightning of anger hurls a green axe and herds wild boars of putrefaction into the beautiful violent precincts of the nostril. At the end of the small hours, the sun that coughs and spits its lungs out. At the end of the small hours, a little line of sand, a little line of muslin, a little line of maize. At the end of the small hours, a great gallop of pollen, a great gallop of a little line of little girls, a great gallop of colibris, a great gallop of daggers, to plunge into the earth's breast. Angel customs officers who mount guard by the entrances of the waves over all that is forbidden. I declare my crimes and say that there is nothing to say in my defense. Dances, idols, relapses, I too have murdered God with my idleness, my words, my gestures, my obscene songs. I have worn parrot feathers and muscat skins. I have worn down the patience of missionaries. I have insulted the benefactors of humanity. Defied Tyre, defied Sidon, adored the Zambezi. The expanse of my perversity confounds me. Yet, why continue to hide in the impenetrable wild? My beggary living zero, why not, disregarding all lessons in nobility, strike up the horrible jumping of my Bantu ugliness? Voom ro, to charm snakes, to conjure up the dead voom ro, or to hold back the rain, to cross the tides voom ro, oh, to stop the shadows turning voom ro, or to let my own skies open. On a road, I am a child chewing a sugarcane root. On a blood road, being dragged, I am a man with a rope round my neck. Upright in the middle of an immense circus on my black forehead is a crown of thorn apple. Voom ro, fly away higher than quivering higher. Then witches towards other stars, when no one gives them a thought to fierce exaltation of forests and mountains, uprooted islands in chains for 1,000 years. Voom ro, oh, let the promised time come again, and the bird that knew my name, and the woman who had 1,000 names, fountain and sun and tears, and her hair like young fish, and her steps my climates, and her eyes my seasons, days, without harm nights, without offense stars, a confiding wind of complicity. But who lays hands on my voice? Who flays my voice? Stuffing my throat with 1,000 bamboo hooks, 1,000 sea urchin needles. You filthy remnant of a world, you filthy small hours, you filthy hate, it's you burden of insult and 100 years of the whip, 100 years of my patience, 100 years of my effort. Simply not to die. Ro-oh, we sing of poisonous flowers, bursting in meadows of fury, skies of love struck by clots of blood, epileptic mornings, the white, burning of abysmal sands, the sinking, of wrecked ships in the middle of nights rent by, the smell of wild beasts. What can I do? I must begin. Begin what? The only thing in the world that's worth beginning. The end of the world, no less. Flan, oh flan of the appalling autumn, where new steel grows and undying concrete. Flan, oh flan, where the air rusts in great patches of evil laughter. 60, where water which is pus slashes at the great cheeks of the sun. I hate you. Women are still seen with madras cloth round their loins, rings in their ears, smiles on their mouths, babies at their breast, and all the rest of it. Enough of this outrage. Now for the great defiance. Diabolical impulses, the insolent, nostalgic drift of red moons, green lights and yellow fevers. 20 times over in the tepid warmth of your throat, you will develop and entertain the same poor comfort that we are no more than mutterers of words, and you do it in vain. Words, we are handling. Quarters of the world, we are marrying. Delirious continents, we are breaking down. Steaming doors. Words, yes, words. But, 61. Words of fresh blood. Words which are tidal waves and erysipelas malarias and lavas and bushfires, burning flesh and burning cities. Know this well, I never play except at the millennium. I never play except at the great fear. Accommodate yourself to me. I won't accommodate myself to you. I have been seen snatching, with a grand gesture of the brain, a cloud that is too red, or a caress of rain, or a prelude of wind. Yet do not be unduly reassured. I break open the yoke bag that separates me from myself. I force the great waters that gird me with blood. I and nobody else reserve my place on the last train of the last tidal wave. I and nobody else give tongue to the last anguish. I and I alone procure for myself with a blow lamp the first drops of virginal milk. And now to be done with the sun. It is not strong enough to go to my strong head. With the flowery night laying its golden eggs of uncertain fireflies, with the shock of hair trembling at the cliff top, where the winds change like troops of salty shifting horses, exoticism, my pulse tells me, is no fit food. As I leave Europe, the irritation of its own cries, the silent currents of despair, as I leave Europe timid in its recovery, and boasts, I wish for that egoism which is beautiful, which runs risks, and my plowing reminds me of ship's relentless prow. How much blood there is in my memory. In my memory are lagoons. They are covered with death's heads. They are not covered with water lilies. In my memory are lagoons. On their banks no women's loincloths are laid out. My memory is surrounded by blood. My memory has its belt of corpses. A volley of rum warmly lacing. Our wretched revolts. Sweet eyes swooning drunk with a drink of ferocious liberty. Niggers are all the same. I tell you they have every conceivable vice. I'm telling you that nigger smell makes a cane grow. It's like the old saying, beat a nigger and you feed a nigger. Among the rocking chairs with my mind upon the voluptuous horsewhip, I go back and forth, an unappeased foal. Or else, quite simply how they love us. Gay and obscene, and to be rid of boredom, very hot on jazz. I can do the soft shoe, the Lindy hop, and the tap dance. And for a special treat, the muted trumpet of our cries wrapped in wah-wah. Wait, everything's in order. My good angel grazes in neon lights. I swallow sticks. My dignity wallows in vomit. Sun, angel sun, curly-headed angel of the sun, oh, leap across the sweet greenish fluid to the waters of shame. But I have come to the wrong witch doctor. On this exorcised earth, abandoned to the bias of its own aim, precious and evil, a voice cries, slowly getting hoarse, vainly, vainly hoarse. And there is nothing, only the piled-up dung of our lies. Not replying. What madness to dream of the marvelous dancer leaping beyond all that is contemptible. Indeed, the white man is a great warrior ascended to the master, the castrator of Negroes. Victory! Victory! I say the vanquished are content. Forwarded gaiety and songs of mud. As a result of an unforeseen happy conversion, I now respect my repellent ugliness. On St. John the Baptist Day, as soon as there is some shade, hundreds of horse dealers congregate in the township of Gromorn, and the street they meet in is called De Profunda Street. At least the name gives some warning of what death will deliver from its lower depths. And it is truly from death that the astonishing cavalcade comes, from death in its thousand mean local forms, hunger pains uneased by paragraphs, drunken addiction to distilleries. The impulsive, worn-out nags that come from death push their way into life, which opens like a flower. And what galloping, what whinnying, what sincere pisses, what amazing defecations. A spirited horse, difficult to mount, a grand mare with fine fetlocks, a plucky foal, nobly proportioned, and the salesman cunning proud with a watch chain across his waistcoat, makes out that the regular swellings caused by obliging wasps, the obscene stings of ginger, the charitable flow of a bucketful of sugar water, are proof of genuine sturdiness, youthful ardor, and full udders. I refuse to pass my swellings off for authentic glories, and I laugh at my old childish imaginings. No, we have never been Amazons at the court of the king of Dahomey, nor princes of Ghana with 800 camels, nor doctors at Timbuktu when Askia the Great was king, nor architects at Jen, nor Madis, nor warriors. We do not feel in our armpits the itch of those who once carried the lance. And because I have sworn to conceal nothing of our history, I who admire nothing so much as a sheep grazing of an afternoon in its own shadow, I wish to confess that we were always quite undistinguished dishwashers, small-time shoe-shiners, at the very most fairly conscientious witch doctors, and the only record we hold is our staying power in wrangling over trifles. For centuries this country repeated that we are brute beasts, that the human heartbeat stops at the gates of black world, that we are walking manure hideously proffering the promise of tender cane and silky cotton, and they branded us with red-hot irons, and we slept in our shit, and we were sold in public squares, and a yard of English cloth and salted Irish meat were cheaper than us, and this country was quiet, calm, saying that the Spirit of God was in his acts. We, vomit of the slave ship, we, hunted meat of Calabar. Plug your ears? We, stuffed to bursting with the swell, with squalls with inhale fog. Forgive me, partner whirlwind. I hear rising from the hold chain curses, gasps of the dying, the sound of one who is thrown into the sea, the baying of a woman giving birth, the scrape of fingernails advancing on throats, the sneer of the whip, the prying of vermin among weary bodies. Nothing can rouse us to noble, desperate adventure. Amen. Amen. I am of no nationality ever contemplated by the chancelleries. I defy the craniometer. Homo sum, etc. And may they serve and betray and die. Amen. Amen. It was written in the shape of their pelvis. And I who sang with clenched fist. You must be told the length to which I carried cowardice. In a tram one night, facing me, a Negro. He was a Negro tall as a pongo, who tried to make himself very small on a tram seat. On that filthy tram seat, he tried to abandon his gigantic legs and the starved boxer's trembling hands. And everything had left him was leaving him. His nose was like a peninsula off its moorings. Even his negritude was losing its color through the effects of a perpetual tanner's bleach. And the tanner was poverty. A great sudden long-eared bat whose claw marks on that face were scarred, scabby islands. Or perhaps poverty was a tireless workman fashioning some deformed cartridge. You could see clearly how the industrious malevolent thumb had modeled the lump of the forehead. Pierced two tunnels, parallel and disturbing through the nose, drawn out to disproportion the upper lip, and by a masterstroke of caricature had plain, polished, varnished the smallest, neatest little ears in all creation. He was an ungainly Negro without rhythm or measure, a Negro whose eyes rolled with bloodshot weariness, a Negro without shame, and his big smelly toes sniggered in the deep gaping lair of his shoes. Poverty, it has to be said, had taken great pains to finish him off. She had hollowed the eye socket and painted it with a cosmetic of dust and rheum. She had stretched the empty space between the solid hinge of the jaws and the bone of an old, worn cheek. On this she had planted the shiny little bristles of several days' beard. She had maddened the heart and bent the back. And the whole thing added up perfectly to a hideous Negro, a peevish Negro, a melancholy Negro, a slumped Negro, hands folded as in prayer upon a knotty stick. A Negro shrouded in an old, threadbare jacket. A Negro who was comical and ugly, and behind me women giggled as they looked at him. He was comical and ugly. Comical and ugly, for a fact. I sported a great smile of complicity. My cowardice rediscovered. I bow to the 3 centuries which support my civil rights and my minimized blood. My heroism, what a joke. This town suits me to perfection. My soul is supine, like this town, supine in the dirt and mud. This town, my face of mud. I demand for my face the dazzling prize of being spat upon. Being such as we are, can the rush of virility, the limb of victory, the large-clawed plain of the future belong to us? I prefer to admit that I have babbled generously, my heart and my brain like a drunken knee. My star now the funereal hawk, and on this ancient dream my cannibal cruelties. Bullets in the mouth thick saliva our heart daily bursts with meanness, the continents break the frail moorings of isthmuses, lands explode along the fatal division of rivers, and now it is the turn of these heights which for centuries have stifled back their cry to quarter the silence and the people. Courage leaping in our bodies dismembered in vain by the most refined tortures, a hotter-headed life spurting from this dung, like a bullock's heart tree unexpected among decaying breadfruit. On this ancient dream within myself, my cannibal cruelties. Destiny was calling me, and I behind a stupid vanity. Here's a man forced to ground, his feeble defenses scattered, his sacred maxims trampled underfoot, his pedantic declamations farting through every lesion. Here's a man forced to the ground, and his soul is naked, and destiny triumphs, as it looks upon this once defiant soul molting in the ancestral mud pit. I say that it is well so. My back shall make a victory out of its whipping sores. I shall trim my natural obsequiousness with acknowledgments of gratitude, and my enthusiasm will outclass the silver-braided flummery of that postilion in Havana, lyrical baboon, pimp of the splendors of servitude. I say that this is well. I live for the greater flatness of my soul, for the greater limpness of my flesh.